Hey, it's Soul giving you guys the World of Warcraft, and today we're going to talk about the Q&A that had just happened with Ian Hezacostas and Josh Allen, aka Lore. The main theme of this Q&A was the 7.1.5 patch, and mostly had to do with like class changes and tuning and things like that. So I'm not going to get too in-depth with like all the different individual questions and answers that were involved with each individual class. Instead, I'm going to pick and choose some highlights from those different kinds of class Q&As, and then some of the other stuff that they were talking about. Of course, you can check out places like MMO Champion or Wowhead if you want to take a look at, like the bullet points of each and everything that had been said. If you're not interested in that though, you just want to get a quick digest, welcome. So first things first, 7.1.5 isn't going to come out until next year, not until after the holidays. I think even I had predicted that this is going to come out before the holiday break, but obviously I was wrong, and that kind of makes sense too. Like, it would kind of suck if, hey, they deployed the patch and then stuff totally hit the fan, there were huge bugs and things like that, and all of a sudden like half the team is out. They're sipping their eggnog and they're like, wow, shit's hit the fan. Woo! Ian also gave a little bit of insight as to how patch cycles work. He spoke a little bit about the whole project management side of things, how there's only so much, of course there's only so much time and manpower that can go into certain things. And what happens as a director or a producer or a project manager, they need to take a look at, kind of the big picture and see like, okay, this is everything that we want to get done, and this is all the time that we have to do it. There are a couple of really big, huge, sweeping changes that certain parts of the team that they have to focus on, but at the same time, they kind of have to push other things off of the table, so to speak. And it sucks for some players who are really passionate about their certain class or spec that seems like it's not going to be, their problems don't seem like they're going to be addressed in this patch in particular. And they're like, oh my god, hey, Blizzard promised, and this patch was supposed to be like the small patch where they focus entirely on class changes and things like that. Why can't my class fit? And there is no excuse for not being able to get everything done, because it's the reality of things. You can't. I think Ian was talking about a certain shaman change where there was a certain something wrong with one of their major abilities, and the only fix that they had wouldn't be able to come in time for the patch, so they're trying a different kind of workaround to make things work and make it functional, and people just kind of have to deal with it, and then at the same time readjust the numbers so that it feels, it still feels kind of natural, and then later they're going to go back and implement the actual change and change everything back to what they had intended it to be. So it's not like they're not trying, they're just trying to do things right. It kind of goes back to what they have to say like pretty much every patch cycle, where a certain class or representation of players say, hey Blizzard, listen to me, how come you're not listening to me? And community managers come back and say, well, we're listening, but just because we don't reply doesn't mean that we're not listening, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's something that kind of should go without saying, and it does seem kind of patronizing if Blizzard has to go out, to every response and say, we're listening, we'll get back to you, and blah blah blah, just to placate this anger. I'm reading stuff, but I like the part where they're giving up on greater blessing of might. Surprise, surprise. I wanted it to be kind of cool, but in practice, and sometimes I have one, maybe two, sometimes three rets in my raids. So every time I have to be like, okay, I gotta choose who's the highest DPS at the top, the top three highest DPS at the time, because the Blessing of Kings one and the Wisdom one, that's garbage. It was just might that really mattered. But I have to go and look at the meters and look at like who's the highest DPS going at the time, and apply, okay, let's get 3 mites on this person, and this person. It's confusing, it's kind of unwieldy, and the end result, just like Ian said, it just wasn't very satisfying. So Ian also talked about artifact knowledge and artifact power, and I posted a kind of half-assed video that talked about the new artifact knowledge compendiums and synopses and tomes and how all that stuff is going to work in the next patch. But one thing that I was trumpeting like mostly to the guild is that, hey, once I get to my 35th artifact trait thingamajig, and I'm really close, I'm probably gonna hit it like today or so, I'm just gonna set on artifact power. I mean, there's nothing for me to spend it any further on. I do not care about holy or red or anything like that, even though I did at least get the weapons, but I didn't care. And I decided as soon as they made the announcement at BlizzCon, I was like, hey, here's one guy who's just going to be amassing the artifact power as soon as I hit 35. For those of you who aren't quite close to artifact level 35, once you hit 34, you get one more trait to unlock, and it's a 20-point trait. You get this trait and you get a very nice like little bonus. For tanks you get 10% armor, for DPS you basically get like a 5% additive to all your damage. Every other point after that gives a 0.5% increase, so it's like, hey, a really cool really cool trait, but then the diminishing return, it just drops off a cliff. Like, you get such a small incremental change to it that you might as well sit on artifact power. But Ian was like, not today. So the way that this is going to work, and I have no idea if this is actually going to be implemented come 7.2, that's like ways away, but it looks like they're going to take this 20-point trait, this final trait, and I guess break it. And I'm not quite sure how. They're going to either maybe give us the trait, but they're going to refund us all the artifact power that we had poured into that trait. So maybe like that 10% armor buff, we'll get a 10% armor buff, but then we'll also get a refund for every other point that we spent. So it's always a 10% buff, but then we can put, artifact power into something else. The moral of the story, though, as Ian said, is that there's going to be no reason for us to just sit on artifact power. And I don't know, man, that kind of sounds like a dare. There are players that only care about one spec in their given class. So I think that it is possible that before 7.2 comes out, there will be a number of people, probably, heck, maybe a large number of people, that will have fully maxed out their artifact for at least one spec. And I'm more than certain that in order to do that, you have to pretty much not care about any other spec, or heck, any other class either. You're just going to be spending your time just grinding that artifact power. I'm certainly not going to do that, but probably after today, I'm just not going to give a damn about getting artifact power. I'm still going to get the knowledge tomes and things like that till I get up to 25. Once I do get to 25, then I'm going to start caring at least a little bit about reacquiring artifact power. Because between now and knowledge 25, that's just going to be a wasted effort for me to go out and actively farm that stuff, which is kind of nice. It's, kind of liberating. Last but not least are legendaries, which is my super favorite thing to talk about, obviously. The most important thing that they talked about was the drop rate over time. There was a concern that I had, and I stated in some video about how legendaries kind of feel like talents, or, they just feel like a system of depth that people can take advantage of. And someone who's just hopping into the game recently, or just created an alt or something like that, they're gonna have a really hard time getting caught up, not just to get the gear that will give them the power, of a legendary thingamajig, but just having the depth of being able to swap things out. It takes kind of some fun away. And speaking of that comparison of talent, Ian talked about how these legendaries maybe shouldn't have been always a damage increase. Like, they shouldn't entirely be useful all the time. And off the top of my head, I'm not able to cite any specific examples, but I'm thinking that their approach to legendaries was a little bit flawed. That they should have approached this kind of like talents. Like, if you look at PvP talents, there are very specific rows. Like, one of them has to do with controlling crowd control effects. That's the first row. And then so on, there's different things for silences and other sorts of PvP related mechanics. And the same thing goes for the regular talents too. So I'm thinking that maybe their approach should have been more aligned with how talents work. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts on today's Q&A. I know that a lot of them was really class specific, and it's not really something that I'm bringing up, but let me know how you feel about this one. Did the Q&A make you feel a little bit better? Were there little highlights or things that are just totally triggering you and make you want to just throw a chair out the window? I don't know. That's all I got to share with you guys right now, but if you want to take a look at all the bullet points, check out MMO Champion or Wowhead, or if you want to take a look at twitch.tv/Warcraft, you can replay today's Q&A. I'm out of here for now, but of course, thank you guys for all the support that you guys have been giving me. I'm Soul. Stay breezy, guys.